I told him that with Daniel Sperry coming up at 10:30 Eastern, it's okay to come in and cheat a little bit. And so Bart Keeler is now joining us and breaking things down for us here from his perspective on a Reaction Monday. Bart Keeler, good to see you, sir.
I don't want to come in with a Virginia Tech lead-in, though. That was rude.
Okay, well then, no? It's a Vanuatu United lead-in, sir. Actually, so
Okay, that's fine.
but that was it was history that was made over the weekend, and obviously there's some really cool stories in there that we're going to continue chasing as the league continues here. You've got nations that are trying to start national teams. You've got Jalen Rodwell from Niue, which is another part of Micronesia, and they're trying to get things started. Ronan Wynn from Atlanta United 2 is playing in Auckland. So we're getting all of that stuff going on. Since we started, we talked about AFCON before we went to the OFC Pro and all the managers that are up against the wall and really mad. You know, the AFCON, there were a couple things in AFCON that I wanted to discuss with you, specifically the anger and angst of a final, and I want to go through the two calls with you. The one that had the goal wiped off the board, and then the Brahim Diaz penalty. Taken as a group, I figure if you call one like that, you got to call the other like that. And Brahim Diaz, because of what he has done in the tournament, you kind of get the idea of, okay, star goes down, you got to call it. When you look at those two calls in total, what sticks in your head?
Let's work backwards, John, because I do think that the penalty that ends up being called, what could have been the deciding moment, and maybe was the deciding moment in the match.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to say it's a foul. And I know that is not what the Senegalese want to hear, but it's a foul. You should not put your hands on the neck or head area of an opponent ever. You surely should not, after that, pull slash, I don't know, rip downward, because it was a foul. Do I think that it's something that was necessarily consistently called throughout the rest of the match?
Yeah.
I don't have the replay available of every single corner kick set piece from this match. There were
What?
several, and there were shenanigans throughout all of them. But it was a foul. I think, especially in this case, the referee either may not have seen it directly because it was kind of on that back post area where if you're looking at the flight of the ball, and granted, the referee is looking at the chaos in the middle, but he's looking once that ball is kicked, you're looking at, okay, where is the ball going? It doesn't get to, it's back, so it takes a while to get there. So was the referee fully clued in on that particular scrum on the back post? Maybe, maybe not. If he saw something, maybe he didn't see exactly what happened, right? VAR intervention there did make sense because it is I just said it. It's hands to the head or neck area. That is something that needs to be checked. The referee went to the monitor. He said, "Oh, yeah, that's a foul," because it was a foul, and therefore it's a penalty kick. So that's the first incident, which again I think the referees got correct. Right? That's that first foul.
Okay.
Now, I will say, and granted, I'm watching a bar stool with the TV 10 feet away on a smaller TV that's however many miles we are to Rabat away. The first foul, the foul that ends up disallowing the goal that Senegal scores, did seem soft to me. I will 100% say that. In live action, I don't think that's a foul. But when you do review it on replay, right? You get two arms fully extended in a forcible motion to the chest of the defender. And to me, I don't like that it was called in real time, but that was my view from a bar stool, 10 feet away from a TV. That is how many yards away from, the actual playing field. That is several many miles from the actual location of the match.
Understood.
Once I saw the replay, I went, oh, yeah, it's fine. And again, I think that is some level of heightened scrutiny when you commit a foul that directly leads to a goal score. This was not necessarily even in my opinion, it wasn't like, oh, they were both going for the ball type thing. I mean, it was very clearly he pushed the defender down and ended up scoring after it. So I do think both foul calls were correct, John.
Okay.
Now, I'm not an African Cup of Nations player, manager, director, whatever. I do not know all of the things that have gone down behind the scenes about corruption, alleged corruption, the fact that all home teams get some slightly beneficial calls throughout a tournament, certainly within a match. I will just say that I do think that the game was called with a little bit less intervention from the referee. I'll just say that. I thought he let a lot go. And I thought it was good, right? I thought the referee, up until this point, I felt the managed to ref the match pretty well. I won't say it was even because I do think one team maybe probably got a little bit more out of the physical nature of the match, but he wasn't quick to blow his whistle. I think he did even a better job of blowing his whistle toward the end of the match where things were getting a little desperate, for lack of a better word. And I don't think he had a bad match. Now that brings the VAR component into it. But the problem is VAR is checking for clear and obvious errors. Am I right, John?
Clear and obvious, yes, sir.
So, was the foul called against Senegal on the goal scored a clear and obvious error? Not really. Was the no call in penalty area initially on the field a clear and obvious error? I do think VAR had license to step in and say, hey, again, there are hands wrapped around the head or neck area of an opponent. You might want to take a look at it. And I know that's not what, other African nations want to hear. I get it. I am not an African nation national football federation. That's not me. I don't know the things that have gone on behind the scenes or whatever they have alleged. But looking at what was called on the field, I don't think that either of them was incorrect.
Okay. There were some, I mentioned the ball boys that were trying to distract as best as they could. And full props to the Senegalese backup keeper for making sure the towel.
Listen, I remember I was in 8th grade. I had two guys who played on, by the way, South Soccer. Two guys who played on the varsity team when I was in 8th grade, I think, 8th or 9th grade, played on the varsity team. We had a girl behind me who was on the varsity team. We were the ball kids, right? And you better believe that our head coach had some conversations with us about proper ball kid etiquette, John.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying.
Yes.
I ain't gonna hold them for any. They did their job. That's just what I'll say.
You were there to aid and assist, sir. Yes, you are there to make sure that that everything is going to be the way it is supposed to be. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. How'd you do?
Correct.
The other, before we get into Yanks abroad, whatever else is on your mind when it comes to NWSL signings and friendlies and all these things that are happening.
Yeah.
There's something else that I noticed coming into this week, where apparently, and this is from our friends at the Telegraph, and traditionally when we sit there and you have more than one reporter on a byline, you kind of sit there and you go, whoa, I don't know if I want that. Headline: Premier League wants to introduce rugby-style concussion substitutes. They're among 28 competitions applying pressure on international lawmakers about temporary replacements for head injuries.
Yeah.
And right now, you are currently allowed to make one permanent concussion change per match, which doesn't count against usual substitution limits. Critics, however, argue that by forcing medics to make a decision on the pitch, they are endangering players because there's a tendency to avoid removing a player if concussion is not certain. Premier League, which has been calling for temporary substitutes for years, is also submitting a formal request for a trial with support from the EFL. Understood to have told IFAB that medical and scientific evidence supports the need to revisit the law. Letter will be discussed at IFAB's annual business meetings tomorrow, it is hoped. temporary subs previously opposed by IFAB back in 23. To mitigate concerns this time, the league is proposing that both teams would be allowed to make additional substitutions to ensure the law is not abused. So you're looking at the possibility of using the rugby substitution rule. Brain injury charity Headway has criticized IFAB's stance, insisting the current law places unnecessary pressure on players and club medics. And so you have the Premier League offering to meet with IFAB to discuss a trial. IFAB could then progress the discussion of a trial, potentially at the annual general meeting. And if the request is rejected, Premier League would request detailed rationale on that decision. And so you could have the idea of the temporary substitute happening for the Premier League if they get this to go through. Decision about whether players suspected, once again, still has to be made downstairs. And they want a temporary concussion substitute who could be brought on for 10 or 15 minutes while the potentially injured player is assessed in an off-field environment, and that system is widely used in elite rugby union and league. Yeah. So that's what they're looking at here.
Well, it is good, John, that we have a in practice professional/international standard of how they think this should be done. So shout out to rugby for being ahead of the game on that. I do understand the concerns from IFAB and maybe others about some unfair advantage one could get from temporary concussion substitutes. I think they're wrong. Look, you're trying to ensure safety of players. And I think that, for me, is the most important thing as a referee. We're out there to ensure safety and fairness of the game, right? A concussion is, as I think we've talked on this program countless times, and if we need to phone Jason to make sure we get an advocate in here, concussions are not the same for every person.
Correct.
They're not the same way to identify for every person. They do not show up the same on the same timeline in the same manner, anything. And so I do understand why these advocacy groups want to make sure that we're doing our best job to identify concussions as quickly as possible to reduce the risk of long-term injury, because that's the key here. You may have, and I think the NFL, they have at least a week timeline, basically, is what it comes down to. You get a concussion in one game, you're probably missing the next game. Soccer, in a similar fashion, you have some space in between games, right? Getting it right, making sure the player is safe, and erring on the side of caution is what needs to be prioritized when you're talking about a head or neck injury, because it is something that, unlike a lot of the other injuries we could have in this sport, it's an injury that will stick with you for the rest of the time. And again, being able to identify it properly, but still quickly, right? I think that's the other caveat to all this, is we want to be able to identify it quickly is important. What I like is quickly and properly means off the field. Now, John, put in your little email to me, the show rundown this morning. 8.5 minutes.
Yeah.
For an on-field head injury. Now, I will say this is where we need to talk about it, because I do think this is one of those things where both players are injured. In a head or neck injury, I do think, at least from my very minimal training as a lifeguard, you don't want to move people in a head or neck injury at all. I had this actually unfortunately happen in the last match that I refereed at the end of my trip down to Orlando last weekend, where we had a girl who, a normal soccer foul, I mean, she just kind of got charged into, falls down, clearly hits her head on the ground, tries to get back up, cannot, and we stop play immediately. We call for the medical team to come over. It still took 15 minutes to get everything cleared, because again, you don't want to be moving this type of person a lot.
No.
So, in AFCON, do I think they went through proper concussion protocols? Probably not. But I also understand that both players on the ground, with a head injury. Both players, one with obviously a big gash, the other with probably a nice little knock in the back of his head.
Yeah.
It's hard to just say, oh, get the player off the field. Because, again, you do not want to just be moving these types of players around when they're dealing with a head injury. Because you don't know, especially with a head injury, it could be part of their neck, which, if you don't know, is connected to your spine. Those things are delicate. And when they are injured, moving them around a lot can cause greater damage in the long term than even just a concussion. So I think we need to caution hastily getting them off the field for the sake of restarting play. I don't want that to be the priority, but we do need to make sure we're getting them to a safe and, I guess, low stakes space to evaluate them. Because once they're off the field and you can start that sub, hey, we got time.
Mm-hmm.
The player can give proper answers. The medical staff can ask proper questions, can do proper diagnostics. And we're not worried about, oh, hey, get them off the field. Let's go. We got to restart. Because at the end of the day, a head injury is a more serious injury than just about anything else we can deal with in this sport. We don't want to be worried about, like,
Yeah.
Hey, we got to get going. That's
Yeah.
that's not what we need to be worried about. We need to make sure we're here for player safety. But I think this rule allows things to be a little bit more expedient because you can get the player off the field and assess them off the field without having to worry about playing, obviously, a man down, which is good. We do this in youth leagues. I do also want to put that out there. Like, this is something that is very common in U.S. soccer youth leagues where, a lot of them have substitution limits, but with a concussion, we just kind of say, look, make your sub. And if they can come back on, great. If they can't, there's your sub. We're good.
Yeah, just focus on player health and safety, and that's cool. Don't worry about it. Yanks abroad. Let's get into that. It was a very, very busy weekend for folks. You got Brendan Aronson, and so the irony of Brendan Aronson going up against Anthony Robinson with Leeds and Fulham going up against each other.
Listen, Brendo's been helping Leeds make sure they're not getting relegated this year.
Mm-hmm. And so Leeds Live, quote, really positive and productive, full of confidence, but missed a glorious chance he ought to have buried when put through. Put it behind him well and continue to win duels and look forward. So Leeds Live gave Brendan Aronson an 8 in the 90 minutes of the 1-0 win over Fulham. Jedi obviously was on the flip side of that. Tyler Adams still out nursing his injury for Bournemouth and Brighton, which is today, Monday Night Football. Chris Richards, Crystal Palace, got a yellow in 90 minutes, losing to Sunderland 2-1, and then Oliver Glasner just decided to just lay waste to the entire front office, and we're going to play that in just a little bit. So you had that go down in the Prem. Haji Wright scores and enters in the 67th, game tied at 1, scored 18 minutes later, gets the game winner for Coventry as they continue their run at the top of the table. Big Pat got a goal for Derby in the 82nd, 7th goal since seeing championship action in September. So you got positives from Big Pat, Haji Wright, Brendan Aronson out of England on the weekend.
Good, mostly good news out of England, I would say. I think number one thing that if you're like really concerned about the success of the USMNT at the World Cup, look, Jedi Robinson is playing soccer. I think that's the most important thing. But other guys, look, Pat and Haji right now, I'm sure we'll talk about this player in a little bit. Mm-hmm. They are possibly in position to maybe make a World Cup roster as a striker, given some of the red crosses next to some guys' names on the depth chart right now.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah, that's never good stuff. Let's see. In France, I still need to get that drop from Stewie. France. Mm-hmm. Timothy Weah goes 90 minutes, gets a goal and a 5-2 win for Marseille. Folarin Balogun, middle of the road, gets a 5 according to the ratings over there in France. So Folarin Balogun got an assist in 90+3 in their loss to Lorient. Mm-hmm. Tanner Tessman, middle of the road, 74 minutes in their win against Brest. Mark McKenzie injured did not play in their big win against Nice. James Sands gets his first Bundesliga goal in his 24th appearance. got a header for St. Pauli in their comeback win, in their comeback against Borussia Dortmund. 3-2. Emre Can got a stoppage time penalty kick. So Dortmund wins 3-2, but James Sands gets a goal there. Noah Kai Banks got his 5th yellow of the season in the tie against Freiburg, suspended for next Saturday's clash. That's going to end his run of 13 straight Bundesliga starts. Let's see. Malik Tillman was bought from PSG for Leverkusen, gave him the number 10. Leverkusen's now lost 2 straight and 4 of their last 6. They sit in 6th, 4 points above the top 4 European Championship places. So Banks, Sands, Damian Downs, Malik Tillman, Joe Scally each played. Cup of coffee for Kevin Paredes, Christopher Lund, Gio Reyna, Leonard Maloney, and Cole Campbell is injured and did not play. So busy time in Germany.
Now with 2 young guys. First, let's talk about Noah Kai Banks. I will say, of all the criticism or praise that he gets, the one piece of criticism I have to give him is he does pick up yellow cards a lot. I do think that is a little bit him needing to go to the Michael Parkhurst School of Body Positioning for a center back, but that's because he's young, right? And I'm sure Parky would probably say the same thing, as he's learning how to play professionally. I mean, the dude's not even 20 years old. He's got plenty of time to learn that, but he does pick up not silly yellow cards, but yellow cards that I think could be resolved if he were in slightly better positioning. That said, Poch, call him up. Like, you need. I'm sorry. I feel like we just do need to. We're at that point where you can't deny a dude who is a locked-in starter for a Bundesliga team at center back and go, well, we're good at center back. We don't need a guy like that. The other one is Kevin Paredes, who is coming back off of a very serious injury and is playing soccer again. Again, a good thing. I don't think he factors really in at all for this World Cup window, unfortunately. Look, World Cup is in. I mean, we play our second game at this point now, and John, in 6 months, right? So I don't think Paredes has enough of a runway to really make a case. But going forward, Kevin Paredes is a guy we need to be healthy in this pool because he's a winger, and we don't have a whole lot of those. Now that said, he could ball out if he maybe gets back into health and gets back into form. Maybe that's a possibility. I'm not saying it's not. I just think that it's just good he's back playing, because I think it's unfortunate that he has been injured so frequently and so long, because I think he may have factored in a little bit into this cycle. Again, a guy playing in the Bundesliga is worth noting.
Italy, Yunus Musa, 56 minutes and a draw. Christian Pulisic, I've heard of this gentleman, 73 minutes in a win for AC Milan against Lecce. It's a match they should have won. Weston McKennie gets 80 in a loss at Cagliari. Benjamin Kremasky got a cup of coffee in his. So Gazzetta dello Sport on Pulisic. Quote, he lets Milan down like he did in Florence. Falcone stops him twice, once in each half, but he could have done better. He moves a lot, makes runs, and gives everything. The finishing will come back. So at least there's optimism on Christian Pulisic.
I think Christian Pulisic is not an elite level finisher, right? He is not at that Lewandowski, Haaland type of level of finishing, right? He just isn't. That is fine because, as I kind of noted, like, he does everything else pretty darn well. He needs to get back to his form of beating guys 1v1 on the wing, I think, but everything else he does is still operating at a really high level. So if the only thing that's missing right now is he's not quite putting the ball in the back of the net, you just kind of have to accept that that's going to happen from time to time, right? Hopefully, if you're the USMNT, it's on, June and July of this summer. But right now, it's just a little bit of a lull. I would also just say if AC Milan are blaming the American, things aren't really that bad over in Milan.
Yes. So that is the latest with Italy. And then once again, Gianluca Busio at Venezia scored his 4th goal of the Serie B season in the win over.
Are they going up, John?
Well, they're in second. I mean, they're 3 points ahead of Monza. So then they're a point behind Frosinone. So it's they got to keep it. You got to keep it going because it literally is a rock fight. It is a rock fight in Serie B, and it's worse the lower you go. But so I think Venezia might be turning into one of those yo-yo clubs that we talk about.
I would agree. Yeah,
that it's like they're good enough to, they're like Serie B plus, Serie A minus, Serie
Yeah.
B
No,
plus.
they're Serie B plus. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, so it's kind of like, you're like right in there. So that's what so Serie B plus, I think, is probably the best way to talk about Venezia. Women's side. You got to camp, and you got 2 matches, one coming up this weekend in Carson, California, and then the other one that we're going to be talking about in a week's time will be after this first one and getting ready to play in Santa Barbara against Chile. But it is let's see, so Saturday in Carson, women take on Paraguay before they take on Chile a week from tomorrow. So, what are you looking at here with this camp that is all NWSLers, and what are you staring at with this?
Well, I think you just kind of hit the nail on the head. It's all NWSLers, which inherently means there are some spots that are open. I do think that there will be, if you want like actual players who are good, who are fighting for a spot, look at that defensive holding midfield role to see who actually shines in these 2 matches. Um, I think overall there are a lot of names on here that I'm not going to say I don't expect them to play. That's rude to them because I don't know what Emma's like stated goals are for this
Right.
window yet. But I don't think you need to be worried too much about some of those players, 18 through 24 on this roster, 23 on the game day roster. I just don't. There are a lot of players who are here though who have potential to kind of show out. Now, if you want like star names, Trinity Rodman is back,
I've
and
heard of her, yeah.
it's going to be interesting to see if she even plays. To be blunt,
Yeah.
but I think having her in camp is a good thing. Um, Again, you're looking at possibly some. I'll tell you another position that I'm actually very curious where what we do with this.
Mm-hmm.
Claudia Dickey has performed very well in the past couple camps,
Right.
without Valentel's choice there for a number of reasons. One, a broken eye socket, and then I think the December camp they didn't focus on that either. Claudia Dickey has been really good. Mandy McGlynn has consistently been getting calls up. Um, I don't know because I haven't seen it. Me,
Yeah.
Bart, personally haven't seen
Yeah.
it. But I'm wondering if McGlynn does get a look for one of these games this camp. Now, Emma, like Poch on the men's side, I don't think they're as concerned with results, right, of friendlies. They want to see players, whatever 11 they send out there, or whatever 17 players they end up putting on the field. You need to fight hard, you need to play good, all that kind of stuff. But like winning or losing is not the end of the world for a friendly, especially when you probably should beat Paraguay and Chile. It wouldn't surprise me if we see a goalkeeper rotation here just to see what McGlynn has. Now, we've seen her in the past. She believes Cup last year was a little rocky for her. So I'm just curious, John, if Emma kind of sees McGlynn as in that. Look, if you're asking me, the top 2 are Valentel's choice and Claudia Dickey, right? Is McGlynn just fighting for third spot? Or does she actually have a chance to maybe get some playing time? So that's another question I have for this particular camp is what does Emma do with the goalkeeping situation? So again, central defensive midfielder, I think is going to be a position of note because we actually have some players here who are good, play well in NWSL, and have a chance to at least be on the roster, if not partner with Sam Coffey, depending on how we want to play the midfield position. And then I think goalkeeper is going to be another one that I'm curious because I don't know exactly where Emma sits on the depth chart and the game plan for the goalkeeping position.
Keepers in this particular camp, it's Claudia Dickey, Mandy McGlynn, and Jordan Silkowitz, who is looking for her first cap. 8 defenders: Jordan Bugg, Avery Patterson, Izzy Rodriguez, Tara Rudd, Emily Sams, Giselle Thompson, Kennedy Wesley, and Kate Wiesner. Then midfield, Croy Bethune, Hal Hirschfeld, whoop, whoop, Georgia, Claire Hutton, Riley Jackson, Lola Bonta, Sally Menti, Sam Meza, Olivia Moultrie. Forwards, it's Maddie Darlene looking for her first. Jimmy's Joseph, Trinity Rodman, unattached. Yasmin Ryan, Emma Sears, Allie Sentner, and Rylan Turner looking for her first cap. And so
I will say, I think that unattached, and that's probably good news if you're an NWSL fan, that Trinity's trying to at least stay in NWSL. But that's
unattached.
just crazy.
Yeah,
Um,
that's
yeah.
that. I saw that and it's like Trinity Rodman unattached. It's like, okay, so she's running the Boston Marathon for not a club now. It literally, that's what it's like.
Yeah.
So and so is in the track and field championships unattached. We would always see that, but I think this is the first time that I can recall ever seeing player name unattached. Okay, well, all right. So,
John, we don't have enough time.
No, not this go
we only
around.
have 8 minutes left. We don't have enough time to rant about NWSL roster stupidity.
Yeah, well, that is going to be something that we're going to be keeping an eye on when it comes to the NWSL getting hip or going to actual discussions over glassy long rectangular tables and hermetically sealed rooms and long folding chairs. So yeah, that's out there too. With the other things that are literally on the list of like stuff to discuss with you. I mean, we've got cards and calls. Were there any cards and calls that stuck out to you from the weekend?
John, I think we need to talk about a particular match that I had a great stakes in.
Sure.
There was a handball review in the late stages of this match for Arsenal versus Nottingham Forest. Nottingham Forest had two players challenging each other for a ball on the goal line, and one of the players, the ball clearly hits a non-playable part of their arm. I think is fair to say. I was really okay with this not being a handball, and I know that this is the Arsenal fan in me as not talking. So let me get the referee side out of the way first.
Sure.
I fully understand, I think, why this was not given, and it just comes down to the fact that I don't think he made his arm unnaturally bigger. Your arm's going to move forward as you run. I also think it's fair to say he had a guy behind him who possibly maybe knocked his arm into the ball, which is another thing. And again, we're not looking about intention, right? We cannot judge intent. He does move his arm toward the ball, but he doesn't necessarily make his arm bigger. His arm is in what I would deem a fairly natural ish,
Yeah, it's like
people don't stand with their arms. Yeah, people don't stand or do active things with their arms directly by their sides. He's jumping, he's running. I don't think it's crazy to say, we don't want to call this a handball on VAR review, right? Now, you send the referee to the monitor, maybe we have a different discussion. I don't know. But I think for VAR, this is not, in my opinion, a clear and obvious error that we need to say, no, we need to reverse this.
Yeah.
That's the referee side of me. Let me put the Arsenal hat on for a second.
Sure.
Man City gets this call 10 times out of 10. So that's the other thing here. Somehow Manchester City will get awarded a penalty kick for this exact, like they'll say, oh, that thing that happened, Manchester City is actually going to start the game next week with a penalty kick somehow. Should we rely on
a retroactive judgment?
Yeah. Should we not have to rely on a penalty kick to beat Nottingham Forest away? I would love for that, but as clearly evidenced, we don't do well at the City ground. It is a graveyard for people who should win there that seem to not be able to, and we're one of those teams. So sucks, but hey, we increased our lead at the top of the table. Thank you to Everton and Manchester United.
Yes, yeah, exactly. So the play that Bart is referring to, about 10 minutes left. Ola Aina is literally there's a still that is out from Getty. And
don't look at stills. I will also just say that you cannot just look at a still image of a handball. It's not a great.
And the still that has been produced by the BBC from Getty has the ball literally in the crook of the elbow for Ola Aina, and his as he's trying to it looks like he's trying to figure out a way to clear it. and Elliot Anderson, his teammate that you were discussing, is behind Aina, and it looks like he's trying to reach around with his right leg and kick it and clear it away from the goal line going, it's like they're trying to clear it the other way. So,
I mean, I'm sorry. It's a little funny. I'm like, what are y'all doing?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so Elliot Anderson is trying to, I guess, kick the ball maybe further that he thinks he's going to kick it further than Ola Aina. So, yeah. So you're trying to like juggle and whatever. So the ball hits Aina's shoulder before it hits his arm, and then Arteta and everyone from Arsenal's like, "Hey!" and it doesn't go. So
not his arm. Like that's the thing you have to say. Like it clearly hits his arm in a non-playable part, right? Like so from that standpoint, but then you have to go into is the body bigger and all the other factors. I will say this. I think if this is a shot on goal,
yeah,
probably called a handball because you are at that point possibly denying an obvious goal scoring opportunity type thing. I'm okay. Again, this is me deviating from IFAB. This is Bart's philosophy of soccer.
It's Bart Fab.
This is the duality of refereeing where I'm like, I don't agree with every law of the game or interpretation.
What? Okay.
To me, this is one of those where I go, why are we worried about this being a penalty kick? This is not, in my opinion, a goal scoring opportunity or denial thereof. This is a soccer thing that happens to be in the penalty area. And that's where I do have some issue with a lot of these is like I think if the result of this would not have been a penalty kick, right? Because basically what happens is, I think if I'm remembering correctly, it's a shot that's deflected that's going out of bounds, and they're trying to like not give up a corner kick because obviously you don't want to give up a corner kick to Arsenal.
No,
I think is the timeline of this. I get it, but we're not worried about a goal being scored from this thing. The ball is literally on the goal line. I mean, 20 feet from the goal.
Mm-hmm.
If the outcome of said foul or infringement would not be a penalty kick, I think you're seeing this given. And that's not a conspiracy. That's just me going, I think it's silly that stuff like this, the result would be a penalty kick because this has nothing to do with scoring a goal. There's not an Arsenal player, I think, even in the still frame they pulled from Getty. Like, it's just
the third person in the queue. It's literally
it's
Aina, Elliot Anderson, and then an Arsenal player behind. So
who's
Match Center says ref's call of no penalty checked and confirmed with it deemed that the ball was played off Aina's shoulder first while his arm was also in a natural position.
And that is a key factor here. I'm not going to get into which part of the shoulder it was, but we are trying to reduce our handball calls when it touches a playable part of the body before touching the hand in a natural position, right? Not arms spread wide open like, a Creed song, but in a natural position, which is where I think this arm was very clearly in a natural position. Also, yes, David, Riley Jackson, also in Atlanta, a Metro Atlanta native. So we got 3 girls up there at the over there.
Yes.
Over there.
I
worried myself. Over there.
Over there. West.
I'm looking west actually right
so
now.
I'm going
over there.
Yeah, over there. Okay. All right. What's up
good for them?
Yeah. So what's up with Soccer for USPod?
Well, we got 2 matches coming up in the short spell, so we'll be doing a recap of the women's national team matches after they complete, giving our takes and kind of, again, look, it's a World Cup qualification year for the U.S. women's national team. So we are looking at everything now with an eye of, okay, well, what does that team look like? And how do they perform in late November, early December at a location yet to be determined because CONCACAF doesn't actually care about women's soccer.
Wow. There's your salvo to end things. As always, my friend, great to see you. Enjoy your coffee. Enjoy the mug with your, you got your core mug today. Okay. I see where you're.
I almost broke out the Les Miserables mug, given the Falcons hiring a guy who I don't think should be hired as head coach.
Yes.
But I am no longer giving takes on head coach because I thought Ronnie Diala would be a great head coach. I thought Raheem Morris would be a great head coach. And I was
that's America. That's football down here. That's on the other side of the aisle, my friend.
Yeah, that's on your other show that you do.
Correct. We'll see you soon.
All right. Bye, y'all.